How to Play Young Lust by David Gilmour and Pink Floyd from The Wall. We are in standard tuning for this tutorial, and the lead-in track to Young Lust is Empty Spaces, and it's really easy to play, so I'm going to show you how to play that before we dig into Young Lust. Starting with an open E string, 2nd fret, F sharp, 3rd fret, G, back to the F sharp, and then 3-2 open. And you just repeat that. Some vibrato. 2, 3-2 open. And you just repeat that, I don't know how many times, 6 times, 8 times, something like that. And then we're into Young Lust with this opening riff. So it's an E power chord. You're going to hit it twice, and then you're going to slide into the 9th fret of the D string, and then grab the 7th fret of the G. And give it some vibrato. Now you're going to repeat that 4 times, and between each repeat you're going to do little fills. The first fill, you're just going to go to an A power chord and hit it twice. With a little mute before you hit that A power chord. You know, a little down up mute. And then you repeat. 2nd fill, again, little mute, 2nd fret of the G string, little bend release. Repeat the riff again. 3rd fill, same as the 2nd fill, except you're going to try your best to grab a pinch harmonic. Kind of like that, right? And then back into that again. And now we're kind of into the pre-chorus. So we're going to grab the right around the 14th fret of the A string and slide out of it into this kind of like bluesy progression, right? In G, G5 chord here, bouncing off the 7th fret of the D string for 4 bars, I believe. With this kind of dum ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum ba da bum ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum. Off to E. Back into that riff one more time. Now we're going to slide into an A power chord and let it ring. Ba 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 ba, hit that A a few more times. Now we're going to go up to G, do the exact same thing. Ba da dum, ba 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 ba, G, G sharp, A, right? Ba 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 ba, with mutes before you hit the chords. Ba 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 ba, A, ba 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 ba. And then off to E. And now we're going into the 2nd verse. Before we jump into the 2nd verse, we're going to do this. So you're going to hit like 3 or 4 mutes, 3 actually, and then you're going to grab the 15th fret of the B string, give it a full step bend. Back into the riff. And again, you're going to repeat it. This time you're going to repeat it 3 times. For some reason, I don't know why they don't do it 4 times. But the first time you do it 4 times, the 2nd verse you only do it 3 times. The first little fill, before repeating, mute, D power chord, mute, A power chord. 2nd fill, 2nd fret, bend that 2nd fret of the G string, ride down the open B, open E, and then drop onto the 3rd fret there of the B. A little bend release of that 2nd fret of the G off to open. Right? Back into that again. And now we're going to go off to an A power chord, and then we're going to do this little lick. So a little scale run up the E minor pentatonic, starting with a slide into the 2nd fret of the D. And then going down to the 2nd fret of the G, little bend release, and then you're going to descend up the pentatonic. It's just all pull-offs, right? Pulling off the 2nd fret of each string off to open. then finally when you get up to the low E string, you pull off that G note there at the 3rd fret, and then string skip down to the 2nd fret of the D. And then we're back into the G again. And then this time before we go to A, we're going to do this into A, right? So you're going to do this like triple mute and then slide into the A power chord. Now this time, unlike the first time, where when we went to G, we did the exact same thing. The first time we went to G, let it ring. G, G sharp, A. This time we're not. We're going to go into more of the bluesy progression. A, now G, G sharp, A, then off to E, and then we're into the solo. Right? That is the solo. So we're going to break this up into separate licks, make it a little bit easier, and it starts like this. All on the 5s and 7s. E minor pentatonic work. That's the opening lick. Sliding into 7 to get it started. And then just 5 7s, right? When you go down to that 5 of the D, little tiny downwards tug before going back to the 7 of the A. Down to the 7 of the D, give it a little bend, and then back off to 5. Now, we're going to back this up to the 2nd fret for another pinch harmonic on the G string. Right there, right? With a little mute, a little double mute actually, before grabbing that note. If you miss the pinch harmonic, that's all right. You can't get it every time, but there it is. Even these notes, you know, you can grab some pinch harmonics on these notes as well. Give that a little bend, choke it off. And then we're into this. So we're a double stop work with mutes, a lot of mutes going on here. 12th fret of the G, 15th fret of the B, starting with a mute. And then you're going to do another mute, and then you're going to hit that little double stop again. So it's like mute, hit, hit. And then you're going to drop onto the 14 of the G and do some unison bends while still holding that 15 on the B string. So you're going to do 3, right? And then off to 12, finish on the 14 of the D. Kind of overbent it a little bit there, sorry about that. Right? And then we're into this. That lick right there. So 12th fret of the high E, 15th fret of the B. You're going to bend and then pick twice. Kind of like that. And then you repeat it 3 or 4 times. And then the 4th time, you're going to release that bend off to 12, grab the 15 of the high E for a full step bend. And when you get it up a full step, you're going to choke the note off. So when you're doing these unison bends, you really got to try and get them to pitch, right? So you don't get a whole lot of dissonance going on. Into this. So 15, bend release off to 12. 14 of the G, bend release. Back off to 12, back onto 14. Little half step bend. Now back off to 12 and then back onto 14 for 3 full step bends. And when you have it up there, you're not going to rebend it 3 times, you're just going to bend it and pick it 3 times. Half step. And then you're going to rebend that 14, pick it 3 times and slide out of it. And then we're into this. All on the 12s and 14s, starting with a slide into the 14th of the A. And you're just going right down the pentatonic. And when you get to the 12 of the G, you're going to go 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14. And the third time you go 12, 14, you're going to hit that 14 a second time, and then you're going to hit it a third time and go into a bend release. And then you release it off to 12, right? One more little bend of that 14, release it back to the natural note. And then we're into this. I find this part a little bit tricky to nail exactly like the studio version, but he's grabbing double stops and he's using 2 fingers here, 15th fret ring finger and pinky, 15th fret of the B and the high E, and again, like we did earlier, we're going like mute, hit, right? And then we're going to start bending that 15 of the B while holding the 15 of the high E statics. So you do that like 6 times before finally releasing that 15 of the B back to the natural note. Right? Mute, hit. And then you do like 6 unison bends there before releasing back to the natural note at 15. One more little bend release. And then this little lick. Just right up the pentatonic. Finishing on the 14 of the A and sliding out of it. Finishing the solo with this. So we're coming out of that, right? Right into an A note there, 5th fret of the low E, and then we're just going to bounce back and forth 3 to 5. 3 times, back to that G note, the 3rd fret. Little bend release off to open, grab the 5th fret of the A, and then you're just kind of like vamp on that note there with some mutes in between. And then finally hammer on the 7th fret of the A string to finish the solo. And then we're into A again, coming out of the solo. And so let's run through the solo nice and slow, and then we'll dig into the end of the track here. Ba-ba-ba-ba. I need a dirty woman. G, G sharp, A. Ba-ba-ba-ba. I need a dirty gal. And then you're off to E. Now, before going into the outro of this song, one last little lick. Right there. 15th fret, bend, release off to 12. And a little blues lick, basically. And then we're going to bend the 14 of the G and then ride down the 12s. Back into the main riff. And you're just going to repeat this main riff till fade out, like 8 times or something like that. And again, doing all little fills, a lot of the same fills that we already did. You know, A power chord, D to A, ba-ba-ba-ba. Second fret of the G. He throws this one in though. 14th fret of the G, 15th fret of the B string twice. Off to 12, 14 of the D. Same lick we did earlier, right? D, A. And at this point, it's just fading out. You know, you're just doing little fill lines and whatnot. And like I said, it's just a lot of the same kind of fill lines that we were doing during the verses. And there you go, my friends. That is how you play Young Lust and Empty Spaces by David Gilmour and Pink Floyd. I certainly hope you found that helpful and fairly accurate. And so take care of yourselves. Hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world, wherever that may find you. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.